Thank you, Katerina, and thank you everyone for joining this conversation. Thank you to our speakers today. I am thrilled and excited to guide us through not just a panel, but rather an experimental dialogue together with exceptional leaders on the stage, but in the audience as well. A leadership coach once told me that leadership is the art of disappointing people at the rate they can tolerate. So you are in for a treat, everyone. So buckle up. But before I go into the framework of how this is going to look like, and fear not, you will be also engaged in this conversation. I want to frame our question, and we will have that question on our screen throughout this conversation as well. I call this the good, the heart, and the hope. When we talk about civil society, it sounds very abstract, like something that happens in the policy papers or strategy sessions. But in Ukraine, civil society is something very real. It's something you can touch. It's a person. It's a choice. So I want to share a couple of stories to frame our conversation today. Yuri is a Teach for Ukraine fellow who is teaching geography in one of the villages, deoccupied villages in the Kiev region. A few months into his placement, he learned and noticed that a lot of the teens in his community do not have a space together after school. No youth center, nothing. So he did what Ukrainian civil society does best. He didn't wait for permission. Instead, he rallied the parents, local council, and made sure that he could convince them to hand out to his teens an abandoned library. Then together with the community, they cleaned it up, they repainted it, they furnished it, and they brought in board games and life. And today, the heart of the village is this community center run by teens, for teens. This is what civil society is in Ukraine. Now, a few months ago, I was invited to pitch Teach for Ukraine for a new foundation coming from one of the Western countries, together with another exceptional Ukrainian organization also serving Ukrainian rural communities. Well, in the business world, we would be called competitors. And the setup was staged exactly for that mindset. Two Ukrainian NGOs, each asking to make their case for the same small grant, both serving same communities. So as a leader serving my country, and as a CEO of my organization, I had a choice to make, to focus on my organization's interest or to focus on the purpose we both serve and share, and the whole reason why both of our organizations were even created to begin with. So I offered to pitch together. And I still remember how surprised my counterpart from that organization was. But that was an act of solidarity to show that we cannot just talk the talk, we can walk the talk as well. And that very often reminded me that our sector is pushed into a culture of scarcity, competing for limited resources, fragmenting our efforts, and losing sight of shared mission and the purpose of why we even exist in the country that is facing aggressor every day. And that is civil society in Ukraine as well. So today, as we discuss civil society role in rebuilding Ukraine, the question is not what civil society does, but how it can lead with collaboration, accountability, and strategic focus. How can we move from isolated efforts to a collective force that actually shapes the future? I hope our conversation will dig into both inspiring examples and uncomfortable truths, because only by seeing both, we can unlock the full potential of civil society and rebuild Ukraine from the ground up. We rarely talk about challenges that hold us back. I mentioned fragmentation of efforts, competition for funding, the optics that favor flashy initiatives over meaningful impact, or the boring stuff, as I call it, Or sometimes well-meaning programs cannibalize each other. But we also hold something very rare and unique, the muscle memory of solidarity. When everything else collapses, Ukrainians still find a way to organize, to act, and to believe that we can do more together than apart. Because what's being rebuilt in Ukraine is not just infrastructure. It's the very idea of democracy as a living, breathing collective act. So I want to open this conversation with one question. There's going to be no more, just one. And we will wrestle with that question together with experts on the stage and with you coming on the stage as well. And the question is, and I would ask to put it on the screen as well for us. What does Ukraine's civil society teach the world about how people, not institutions, win wars and rebuild nations? And what would it take for global partners to truly meet that power as equals? Now, a little bit about our framework, how we're going to interact together. This collaborative conversation is inspired by participatory theater in New York City. They call it the long table. And the way it works, it breaks down hierarchy and instead encourages curiosity and deep, meaningful, intellectually rigorous exchange and conversation together. We will start with our 6 incredible leaders on the stage sharing their perspective in 2 minutes, answering that one question, but from the lens of their specific field expertise and experience, what they see on the ground, how they engage with their communities. And then after these 2-minute reflections, I will give up my seat as a symbolic way to engage our democracy in action. I will still be the host, guiding the conversation, keeping us on time, and as I call it at times practice, generous authority. You will hear me doing that. But I will give up my seat, and we will invite anybody from the audience to come up and also share that table conversation and add their 2 minutes reflection through their experiences, through their journey and their knowledge and expertise, answering that same one question. Once the guest in the chair is done sharing, we'll invite you to go back in the audience, opening up a seat for somebody else to take a space. And if anyone in our expert panel today want to add on, they will be able to grab a microphone and add another 2 minutes reflecting on what has been said prior. So in this way, we are taking a risk, okay? We are opening the floor. As we know, democracy is beautiful and messy. And I would invite you to play with us together. We want to wrestle with this question, and we want to be meaningful in what we say and how we say it today. There are a few rules of engagement. Of course, we respect each other. Dialogue is our only agenda here. We try to not self-promote, but instead focus on the question through sharing our experiences and our professional capacities. Only one speaker at a time. There will be silence sometimes. It's allowed. It means that we are reflecting. At times, it might feel awkward, and we embrace that because that means that we are thinking together. So that's okay. Most importantly, there is going to be an end to our conversation, but not end to the meaning that we will carry on further beyond this room and beyond this panel of experts and the audience as well. Just like it happens in conversations all the time. All right, how do we feel about this? Are you ready for this experiment together? Well, give me some indication. Okay. Thank you for being good sport. We'll see how that works together. But again, I'll read out our question just so you can think about it in the audience and for our participants today as well. All right, and it's on the screen as well. What does Ukraine's civil society teach the world about how people, not institutions, win wars and rebuild nations? And what would it take for global partners to truly meet the power as equals? And I would like to invite Evgenia to kick us off with her points from her unique perspective working in Ukraine and in the United States.
Hi. My name is Evgenia Mazurenko, and for the last 15 years, I've been working in NGO sphere from other sides. I was dealing with the Danish Refugee Council. I was CEO of Family Foundation. Probably you know Zahuri Foundation in Ukraine. Then 2 years ago, with colleagues, we launched Philanthropy in Ukraine. It's a platform that verifies local organizations and through data build trust. Now I'm leading program from Brown University, so I can speak from other sides. And the question quite difficult. So I was reflecting and made some notes. So if we still ask, what would it take for global partners to truly meet the power as equal? It's already tells us very important things, that it's not seen yet as equal. And I think the first step to change this is to acknowledge that and to accept that currently this partnership are structured like that. And if there is a real desire to shift this, this paradigm, we need to have self-reflection, self-audit of our processes, of culture, of power dynamics, and understand that if it's an equal partnership, that local organizations should be treated as equal, and what it means. Not to be only implementers, but to be shapers of agenda together, to be co-authors, and not only subcontractors, to be fairly compensated for their expertise and their leadership. And also at this time, we need to realize that equal partnership, it's not just declaration, it's a design. And when we speak about partners with local organization, we also need to accept that not every organization is ready and equipped right now to be equal partner. And I think partnership should meet people where they are, because sector is diverse and it's okay. And maturity comes in other stages. But for those who are ready, they should be treated as equal, as co-creators, but not as pupils.
Thank you.
And the second point, is important to understand what is the role of civil society. Civil society does not win the wars, but civil society rebuilds nations. And this is important to understand. Also, talking about civil society, speed saves lives. And this is something that global community should learn from civil society in Ukraine, because while we are flying, we are building. And civil society in Ukraine operates in startup mode. We are acting, learning, and then building. And because speed saves our lives. And I do agree with you that we don't wait for the permission. And I can say definitely about that, not only from my professional perspective, but from my personal, because my city, Bucha, was occupied. And when the city was deoccupied, first who came to Bucha were my neighbors, me. And what we've done, we had collection leadership, and we rebuilt. Somehow we rebuilt, yes, our cities, and we came back home. And this is something that I would like to stay with you and to discuss together.
Thank you, Pena. Appreciate it. And as we go on, I would encourage and invite you, we will pass on the mic to Anna to jump in, to share from her experience working with Ukrainian women, not only in civil society, but beyond. You do so much at the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security. So I'm curious to hear from your point of view, from the work and the conversations that you have. How do you reflect on this question?
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I'm actually a Georgian American. So when the full-scale invasion first began in 2022, I had a deja vu of 2008 when I was a teenager in Georgia when Russian tanks rolled in Georgia. And to all of you, Ukrainian diaspora, you should be so proud of how you have supported Ukraine during this tough time. And we Georgians have a lot to learn from you as we deal with the hybrid warfare of Russia in our country. But now to your question, I think I have been just extremely impressed and amazed by the resilience of Ukrainian women leaders and the civil society. I think the resilience is the key. At the Institute for Women, Peace and Security, we look at things from the national security defense perspective. And we see that when military soldiers, many of them women, are fighting on the front lines, they need something to fight for. And Ukrainian women leaders and civil society ensures that there's a country to fight for already for 3 years and onward. And on and on and on. I think this is the main lesson that the international community can learn, how to approach the defense, how to approach deterrence from the holistic perspective, where the civil society, women leaders come together to really defend what really matters, the culture, people, not just the front lines. I would say the two lessons from my work that I can take for the from the Ukrainian women leaders is the one, they really create their own tables. The Ukrainian negotiations continue here and there. There are peace deals that may happen, and Ukrainian women at the moment are sidelined. Even if there are some recommendations, there are consultations, it's quite tokenistic. So the one biggest lesson I would say is if the negotiations begin, make sure that there is some kind of consultative mechanism, call it a brain trust or something else, where the civil society leaders, women, come together and tell you what we actually need out of this agreement. Because they truly are the pulse of the society. Military leaders may know the front lines, may know which cities to defend strategically and tactically, but it is the Ukrainian women who actually know what's happening in the communities and how sustainable peace can be achieved. So that I would say is number one. And number two, to Evgenia's point, I really think it's important that international donors and funders, many of you may be here, finally do what they preach, which is localization. We just did a Peace Builder survey at the Institute of Ukrainian Women Leaders. 1,000 results came in, and 70% of them say that most effective programs, development and humanitarian programs in Ukraine happen when they co-design the programs with the donors, and not when the international donors just say, this is what you need to do, and then they implement it. So there's just so much to learn from them. They're so innovative, inclusive, and I just really hope that people wake up to this and learn that there's a major opportunity here.
Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. I saw the audience was clapping and nodding, and the speakers here too, and myself. I just have to hold myself from jumping in to continue on. But let's segue and offer Louisa a chance to also chime in. Louisa, you are running the Center for Public and Nonprofit Leadership. I'm sure you have so many conversations, including localization, including fragmentation of efforts, and leadership and financial stewardships, and all of those things that are important to cultivate healthy civil society. So how do you reflect on this question we have today?
Thank you so much. So I'm going to try and keep it short because my examples are going to be really what can Ukraine offer to us, both in the United States, but globally as well. And talking to nonprofit leaders here in the US, a lot of them are really struggling with understanding how do you operate in a volatile and uncertain, a complex and an ambiguous environment. We call this a VUCA environment. And this is something that Ukrainian leaders and NGO leaders and women and people have been doing for years now. right? And really understanding what does it take to lead when you need to solve immediate problems at the same time that you need to be planning for a future of a strong civil society, because what a strong civil society does allows us to have a strong democratic government. And if we aren't thinking about what needs to happen and have a long-term vision and long-term values that are driving the work, that is the narrative that helps us keep focused on the North Star despite all of the chaos that might be happening around us. And I think that's something that Ukrainian leaders can very much offer to others who are now starting to say, oh my gosh, I'm not used to this kind of space. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with it in your day-to-day decisions? But also, how do you take care of yourselves as leaders? And I think to your point, talking about the importance of collaborating, finding ways to do this work together, both because it creates greater power, but also because it creates that kind of support that we need so we can all stay in the fight long term. And the second thing, a lot of people have already talked about the funding community. I think one of the things that we have seen that has been quite successful in the US space in philanthropy is this leaning into trust-based philanthropy, where we say, you know what, philanthropy shouldn't be the ones who hold the power anymore. It needs to be collaborative. And we need to understand that leaders on the ground are the experts. Philanthropy leaders in the boardroom are not. And how do we develop those relationships? And I think the couple of things we could really be pushing global funders to think about more are some of these trust-based principles, which include giving organizations multi-year funding, giving organizations operational grants that say, you know best. We're not going to tell you what programming you need to do. You should be able to be flexible and respond to whatever is happening on the ground. So I think we have this really great opportunity to both understand what Ukrainian civil society has been learning as leaders in this VUCA environment, but also to say, what do we know from philanthropy here in the US, where we've really been struggling to figure out this power dynamic question, and how can we bring that to the global stage so that we are better supporting our civil society leaders, both today and into the future.
Thank you so much. Very important points. I think we can break it up into quotes and use it in our annual reports or something like that. So thank you, Louisa. Lev, I wanted to transition over to you. So you are advocacy coordinator. You work with the youth as part of your portfolio. So now, when you reflect on this question, from this very much of a lens of the future of Ukraine, the teens, the youth, well, we consider youth up until 31, how do you reflect on this question from your professional standpoint?
Well, thank you very much. You can all hear me. That's beautiful. Yeah, I just want to start with the first thing to say that my name is Lev Zinchenko and I'm Ukrainian American. I had experience of living in Ukraine, growing up there, but also had experience of living in the West and seeing how things work here. And you know, it's a very interesting phenomenon right now in Ukraine, because Ukrainian civil society right now exists both domestically in Ukraine and abroad. And I think right now we're seeing this, you know, Ukrainian civil society abroad. We are all here. We're experiencing it right now. And it is just phenomenal to what extent the youth is being integrated in the Ukrainian civil society right now domestically. The youth is a drive, you know, it's the builder, it's what defines Ukraine right now. And unfortunately, to a certain extent, you know, I've been engaged with the youth organizations when I used to be a student in Canada, in Belgium. I see that there are certain aspects that are, you know, stopping the Ukrainian youth to become, you know, a driver, a change in the West, you know, abroad, let's say that. Perhaps it might have different problematics due to, you know, we had different waves of immigration from Ukraine in the past, and right now this is a new, something unspeakable for us, unimaginable that, you know, we have a lot of people migrating, you know, leaving Ukraine. And I just see that some pro-Ukraine organizations or even diaspora organizations, they're having the trouble to integrate this power, this drive that, actually makes Ukraine what it is. Ukrainian youth is incredible. We are able to scale up some projects that, experts in the US are not able to scale up. We are able to fundraise even better than congressional fundraisers. It's funny enough, Ukrainian youth has no limits. Whenever I'm looking at this question, what can global partners learn from this integral part of the Ukrainian civil society? Ukrainian youth, has the chance to prove itself as a winner. And we are, a driving force to make Ukraine a winner. And I can tell you also one thing, that I know Russia doesn't have such civil society, and it doesn't have such youth. And I think that we are showing by example, even to Americans, to Canadians, to Belgians, that Ukrainian youth set up the bar so high that it is quite difficult to reach sometimes, but it's never impossible. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lev. I feel your passion from over there right here, so thank you. I want to bring in Brita into conversation. Brita is a project director for Peace Ukraine Relief. From what I understand, you really go local. You really understand in-depth realities where you support. Share what do you make of this question through the lens of the work you do in Ukraine and how you support really niche local communities. I call it the boring stuff, not derogatory, but as a way, like what happened to the very important things that are not flashy, that are still needed. We still need to feed elderly. We still need to make sure educators have a place to teach. Those are boring, not sexy things, right? That the donors usually want to see, but like they are very important. And some organizations like yours understand that so deeply. And I'm so proud and so happy that you do. So join in our conversation. What do you make of this question from the lens of your work?
So the first is I've absolutely witnessed, and I think we all agree, that there's just a absolute truth here that people, not institutions, are the ones saving and still saving Ukraine. And that's quite an amazing testament that with or without institutions, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Woohoo! So what would it take for global partners to truly meet that power as equals? I see that as a two-part question. One is, how do we meet that power? Simple in words, more challenging in practice. Know and work amongst and with Ukrainian people and do what they say. Rolling right on through to the next part of the question. Part two is, how do we meet that power as equals? I've got an anecdote about this that includes a case of what I'll call two-sided localization. There's an ordinary woman here in the audience who represents the state of Idaho, Elena Contour, and her community fundraised to match the request I got from a county in liberated Kherson, who no longer had water after the Kakhovka Dam was destroyed. They had a multi-set series of how they were restoring the water infrastructure, and the final little hole that they had was that a large organization had drilled some wells, but they had no electricity to pump the water. So her community met that need, fundraised $50K to build solar stations at every single well. And I think we came there and it restored water to 4,000 people. But we came there and we expected this, an applause and a wow, this is an example of not only just helping this community, but saving Ukraine. That's not what we got, because we were working with people on the ground with muddy boots who were thinking bigger things. So we got a dose of reality instead. We sat down with the local county leader, Andriy Seletsky, and he said, water wells is great, but at the end of the day, that's just stuff. And I'm here to recreate society. You're Americans, you're the bastion of democracy, so tell me, what unites your people? How do you get them working together? What's the relationship between institutions and people, and how do you have them collaborating better? This is the question that I'm asking myself every day, and this is the question I need to answer. And we just looked at him. Excuse me, we don't have that kind of unity in our communities either. So we're obviously, I don't even think that we have to meet this as equals. We're meeting this as friends who are invested in this, in answering the same question, just on both sides of the world. And I would say probably the Ukrainians are the experts in that partnership, given what all they're doing, what they've proven civil society can do. I want to just circle back to the paradigm here of people, not institutions. It's important to focus on people. That's the end and all. But I think it's ultimately a false dichotomy. There is no people, not institutions. Or if there is, it's not ideal. We witness this phenomenon of civil society coming through for Ukraine because of a specific set of conditions, that Ukrainians don't like their institutions, and they have over generations developed ways of avoiding their institutions. And that's exactly what we saw. That was the war effort. That's how they saved Ukraine. And it's also a truth that the people with institutional power are the ones who are going to rule over the saviors of Ukraine and benefit from their largely unthanked and unrecorded sacrifices. So what we were dealing with is a complex social political system where people are existing around, over, underneath, and within institutions. And again, that's, you know, maybe that's a problem to be facing and trying to understand, but it becomes easily addressable when, again, you're working at the local level in a specific community. We brought with us here at the summit 2 women from another liberated community in Kharkiv, Kristina Mandach and Zoya Habarova. They are the living examples of such Ukrainian civil society winning wars and rebuilding their community in the aftermath of their community being completely destroyed. They are the builders of their community. And with them, we partner to exactly try to figure out the niche of how they now work with their institutions to fill in the gaps, to push them to be accountable, and also do so in a way that's empowering civil society and creating civil society. So there's lots of anecdotes to talk about, but that's where I'll start.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you'll share some more. And I think we have Volodymyr to conclude us in this portion of our engagement. Volodymyr, almost everybody knows ESR Yednanya and the power that you bring in Ukraine. Chime in, what do you see in your work? How do you reflect on this question about civil society, people versus institutions, and where is that power imbalance is or is not, as you observe in your work?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and sharing with some efforts and data about civil society in Ukraine. And also, I would like to mention that our democracy built on the advices came from the United States. And we are a very young civil society in the world, like we started our development as a civil society in Ukraine since its independence in 1991, and it was like less than 1,000 of civil society organizations in Ukraine and more than 50 million inhabitants. Later on, like 10 years ago, we had 75,000 of the civil society organizations and less than 40 million of inhabitants. And today we have more than 250,000 of the civil society organizations. And annually we have newcomers like 8,000 of civil society organizations registered. It is, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I represent ISAR Yednanya, and it is interesting that ISAR means Institute for Soviet American Relations, devoted to 1915s as a part of the Soviet American friendship. So, and now we could continue to operate as a local organizations, and we are an example of delocalization, as we are working in Ukraine as really local organizations with no any international interventions in our board member staffs, etc. So we are a huge number of the activists in Ukraine And civil society in Ukraine is different from other countries. We have a civil society organizations as a non-profit organizations, and we have movements of the civic initiatives, of the volunteers, and other active people who is really on the ground and work a lot, but at the same time not organized as an entity, but still operates in Ukraine. And nobody knows how many people involved in all these developments and assistance. When the war began in Ukraine, civil society organizations and civil society as a field were not waiting for instruction or for permission to act. We did immediately. We evacuated our civil society, evacuated people, built shelters, work with recording all the crimes, etc. It was a really huge role of the youth, by the way, and youth started to work in different parts of Ukraine and to assist to the IDPs and assist to the children to host them, etc. At the same time, the adults were interested to save their families and to leave the areas which is in danger, rayons and regions of Ukraine. So the youth was really important at the very beginning and today. So today, civil society plays a number of the new roles in Ukraine, like we defend even democracy in Ukraine, because you know probably that we have a martial law and a lot of limitations in terms of human rights, freedom of speech and other things. So we defend democracy on the national level, but also on the local level. We have this networks and horizontal cooperation among civil society organizations, activists, groups, etc. And there's links even stronger than state has in Ukraine. So. I guess that one of the pillar why Ukrainians can fight and defend the country today, because we have all these horizontal links and networks and connections, and it was really surprise for Russia aggressors to see how just like normal people fighting with soldiers who is equipped, and our people who was just with nothing, even not experienced in fighting with somebody, because we are a peaceful nation. Today we do a lot of efforts to support, to enable an environment in Ukraine. We are improving legislation for civil society organizations, etc. We do a lot of efforts to fundraise resources and support local development initiatives, even build some social infrastructure, etc. Fundraise a lot of resources. And do this all the localization work in Ukraine, having today hundreds of the humanitarian organizations that connect to each other. Before the war, it was like 10 organizations in Ukraine.
So how do you wrestle with that question? Is there one particular part of that question that gives you some insight today?
Yeah. So to be shorter, mobilization of the people, horizontal links and networks really matter, but also trust. Trust to the civil society organizations in Ukraine on the level of 60% or 61%. Trust to the volunteers in Ukraine on the level of 80%. if you will try to find the statistics and data about the local authorities and other stakeholders in Ukraine, you will be surprised. So it is a huge trust on the ground between the activists, civil society organizations, and we do this, and we, we united and institutionalize our links and connections. That's why we are growing as a civil society sphere in Ukraine,
Right.
but based on the activities and support and motivated people who is really defend the country and democracy today.
Thank you, Volodymyr. I really appreciate that point. So I think trust has sounded a couple of times through so many, and of course there are different definitions and we can expand that. So I would invite you to trust us in the process. I will vacate my seat. We have about 10 minutes left to engage with you all. And for those of you who just joined us, okay, so I have the first hand coming over here. So again, you will have 2 minutes to jump into the conversation. We encourage not to do a promotion of your organization, but rather an intellectual, rigorous, no, this way, come on over. So if you don't mind sharing one of the microphones over there, and I'll keep one with me as I will be guiding us and making sure we have space to add. Come join. It's a very symbolic thing. Everybody is a leader and an expert. And so that's why we are doing this together, not just in spirit, but physically moving the space in a way that it accommodates our democracy and our voices in civil society. So introduce yourself briefly, and you have no more than 2 minutes to chime in to this main question we have.
Okay, my name is Bogdan Chudnowski. A lot of you know me from the chats. So look, Ukraine holds a unique position in modern history. Large-scale combat operations to this scale have not happened since World War II. What the nearest comparison in terms of civil society's relationship to the nation is most similar to Israel. Military-civil cooperation, civic, is intertwined in Ukraine. From the medics on the front lines, you have units like Pedem Shah, the Praga First Mobile Field Hospital. You have hospitalers who are on the sponsor board up front there, are working closely with the armed forces of Ukraine, horizontally, like Volodymyr is saying, evacuating the casualties. When I had to put water systems into Zaporizhia, okay, it was Teroborona, territorial defense units, that were defending the perimeter. When we have to do anything in eastern Ukraine to rebuild schools, put in infrastructure that's been destroyed in occupied zones, the national police are working right alongside Ukrainian military sappers. So I have a little bit different view to that question that you see there in front of you. My view is that cooperation is key to civil society. It's all about what Volodymyr was saying. The horizontal cooperation, civil military cooperation, cooperation between all institutions of Ukraine together with the population as a combo platter, which is building national resilience, and that's what's going to save Ukraine. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. We have one of the speakers jump in, and then we have another leader from the audience as well. Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, this conversation, I just want to mention something about the decision-making power. I think you're absolutely correct, sir, that the military and the civil society are collaborating together. But often what we hear from the women leaders that they are not able to influence the decision makers in the government, in politics, in policy. And usually what happens is that after the war ends, the day after, military will come back and they will run for political offices. And because the military is the institution right now that has the highest trust, and the second is civil society and volunteers, they will be elected and they will be the decision makers. I can't be sure to say that about the civil society. After the war ends, they will be again delegated to the secondary roles. So I really hope that we can remember them when the day comes when the elections will open up and democracy returns and martial law ends. I really hope that all of you will support some of those women leaders, civil society leaders, to run for political office, because there is difference between coordination and there's another thing to have a decision-making political power. And they really need to go, so this idea of the institutions versus people, we need to make sure that post-conflict, the women leaders, civil society become the institutions.
My name's Don Greiner. I'm from Pennsylvania. Not here with any organization, just on my own. So what does Ukraine's civil society teach the world? I'll tell you what it's taught me. Let me say this. I have a third Ukrainian heritage, a third Italian, and the other third is like everything else pretty much. But what I have learned is that the Ukrainian people are strong. They are clever. They're brilliant. They're not afraid of a fight. I think that that is what we have to continue doing so that these global partners aren't afraid to stand up and be vocal. And that, to me, is the key. This war, from me kind of on the outside looking in, is a moral imperative to win. You have one man trying to erase an entire people, you know, and it's a people with a beautiful heritage, a powerful heritage that should be celebrated every day. So we need to work on all the global partners, and I think everybody in this room is a global partner, okay? You got to look at yourself that way. So we have to go out and talk to business owners, churches, every organization you can think of or you might belong to, get them involved so that these global partners stand up and become vocal, because at the end of the day, what it's going to take is the Russian people to overthrow Vladimir Putin to win this war. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we have, okay, go ahead. Yeah, so we have a bit of a line here, and I acknowledge all of you guys. We have about 7-ish minutes left to wrap up. So let's just kind of go quickly, come in, take a seat right, so we don't waste time in transition. I will limit my comments, but I will encourage our speakers to also raise your hand and contribute to the conversation as well. So we'll have this lovely woman, and if we can line up right like this, we will do it in an orderly business, just like the democracy intends it to be. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Scott Contour. I'm married to the woman that Brita mentioned. She's from Ukraine. It's been a fun 20 years. But I teach sociology, so we think spend a lot of time talking about social institutions and how they work. And there are two things about social institutions that are problematic. One is that institutions take on a life of their own, and they start to be more concerned with the with the needs of the institution rather than the needs the institution was created to fulfill. The second problem with institutions is they have a hierarchy, and people at the top of the hierarchy tend to have more privileges and power than people at the bottom. Institutions, by their very nature, work against democracy. Having been married to a Ukrainian person for 20 years, I know that Ukrainians are really good at breaking the rules. We have an inside joke in our family that breaking the rules is a Ukrainian value. But this is a place where Ukrainians can lead the way. Institutions are useful, but they are tools, not solutions. And if we set up an institution and we allow it to, or we think that it's going to solve our problems for us, we will get into a problematic space where the institution only serves itself and only the people at the top of the institutions have a voice. Democracy only works if everyone participates. And so Ukrainians' natural rebelliousness, because of a history of being oppressed in a variety of ways, can remind us, whether we're a big organization with a bunch of money we want to give to Ukraine, whether we're individual volunteers, Ukrainian civil society can remind us of the importance of individuals doing what is best not what the institution dictates. Again, institutions are solutions, or not solutions, they're tools, not solutions. Civil society is ultimately about values and principles, and that's what we need to be loyal to. That's what we need to emphasize if we're going to make things work, if we're going to make our institutions work for us and not against us.
Wow, powerful. Thank you. Thank you. I love this, and we're almost not wasting any time on transition. Thank you all.
Hello, my name is Galina Perederi. I'm here only 3 years, and I have a very similar story with the previous person because I'm married to a foreigner 20 years, but this foreigner will live in Ukraine for 15 years, and we moved here because of the war, unfortunately, but he always said that Ukrainians are the kind of people who work hard, not only for themselves, but for their neighbors too. He always struggled because when we finish our work, we need to move to the next one. So that's exactly what our civil society represents. When institutions struggle, people didn't wait for orders or resources, they acted. They protect, help, build, carried each other through. This is a nation where solidarity is stronger than fear. And for global partners, to truly meet this power as equal, that's what I think. They need to move from helping Ukraine to partnership with Ukraine, recognizing that we are not only fighting for our survival, but shaping a new democratic model under the fire. It requires, of course, respect, listening, and collaboration, not charity, but co-creating of our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that. And we have Volodymyr. Grab a phone while we transition. Great.
Yeah, I have one remark just to add to this point. The majority of the people in Ukraine has like annual income less than $10,000. On their resources, they have their lives and keep their lives. They help to their neighbors, and today, when it is a war, they donate to different organizations for different reasons. And if we take statistics, you could find that civil society organizations in Ukraine, in their budget, has less than 25% of the money that comes internationally, 8% money that comes from the national budget, 14% from the local budgets, and the rest of the money comes from the private support, from the donations, from the businesses who is also that are in challenging time today, but they donate. So I just want to support this means and this idea that Ukrainians mobilizing themselves and even has less than 10,000 of annual income donate and help to others.
Very strong point. Thank you.
My name is Amy, and my question is for Lev. So, you ready? All right. The question is about teaching the world. And here's what I've learned. Listening to the panel, seeing what I've seen, they're resilient people. But I want to know, how do you cultivate a civil society when your core future leaders have left and come to America? Because unless y'all have a plan to send your young leaders back, my son was 22 years old when he came and fought and died for a rail in Ukraine. I don't want it to have been my son, but it was. His grandmother's Ukrainian. He felt it was his heritage, and he died fighting for Ukraine. But I want to know, where's the next generation that's going to fight for Ukraine so that they can have a civil society?
Thank thank you for sharing this. This is, I think that a lot of us here, I would say youth that is present in this room right now, we're here not present just because, just to be present. We're here because we believe in strong, resilient, democratic Ukraine. I know that my personal plan is to come back to Ukraine. It is, because I don't see, even though I'm an American right now, I do value Ukraine a lot. My brother was one of the students who was, beaten at Maidan during the Revolution of Dignity. My parents participated in the Revolution of Dignity. And my values are based on that revolution, and actually echoing to the question of values, Ukrainians have values that, we're talking about not following the institutions, but for following our values. And even with the situation with Nabu and Sab, which is quite an internal domestic issue in Ukraine, the youth was there to prevent it from, escalating to the situation of, no return. And for me, it is quite difficult to see it all being here, and I personally feel guilty sometimes.
I just want you to know that my son believed in it so much that when he left the United States Army, he said what the New York Post shared 2 weeks ago: freedom isn't just for America, but if Ukraine was mainly built on the power of the youth, let it be rebuilt on the power of the youth. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Friends, I think we are coming close to out of time, right?
We can have one more story.
One more? Okay,
yes.
Let's do one more then. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. And even though I thought that it was a great closure to the panel, it's my privilege to be here and to speak to the audience and to the panel. I'm Vitalina Shevchenko. I'm Ukraine's youth delegate to the United Nations. I'm based in Kyiv and work there in the field of humanitarian demining, except for youth advocacy. And first of all, thank you for having Youth Advocate on the panel. It's a great pleasure. And one of the, reflecting on the questions, what I wanted to highlight that civil society in Ukraine, as has been mentioned before, it's truly resilient, and it's a great example that before coming to UAS, we, together with my co-delegate, have done regional consultations all across Ukraine to talk to youth and basically ask, what are your problems? What do you think we should advocate when we are here in the US? And a lot of them were sharing how lack of the opportunities they have to be advocates, for example. So students in Chernihiv, they were saying that one of the main problems was lack of shelters to conduct summits like this. So not to have shelters, so when there is a missile attack at night and they can feel safe, but to conduct advocacy summits, for example. The second example that I wanted also to mention, also echoing Lev, is that back in 2014, everything started from students. They were students who went to a peaceful protest on the Euromaidan. And this is something that we all know, but we should never forget that the youth has the power. And finally, reflect on the second part of the question of the partnership. It's a great phrasing, and it's true. Ukraine now has a very unique experience, and it's ready to share it with the world. everything from conducting the unique military operations that we have now, the unique military structures and defense strategies, but also how to do education during the full-scale invasion, how to be youth advocates, how to advocate for environment-friendly society. And so everything, Ukraine is now ready, and we want you to see us not as only a recipient, even though we are truly grateful for the unwavering support of our partners, but also that we are ready to be a true partner. Thank you.
What a way to end. Vitalina, thank you so much. Friends, guests, yes, thank you. I promised you that there's going to be the end of our time together in this conversation, but this conversation is not over. So I invite you to catch each other in the hallway and continue networking and wrestling with this. And to our leaders on the stage, thank you so much for your time. I wanted to wrap up with one quick thing. If you trust me enough, the trust has been our theme. Do you remember how the popcorn is made in the microwave? It pops one at a time. So the reason why I'm talking about it is right now I wanted to invite us all to share like one thing that brings you hope. Through all of the things we wrestled in this conversation and in the conversations before. And I want this to be as a popcorn popping up in the microwave, right? So the answers, one-word answers will be coming from the audience, from the stage, from everywhere. And this is going to be for half a minute. I want you to make this room buzzing with hope that you carry. So what brings you hope? Go. Music, women, vulnerability, the youth, this room, children, people. Sunflowers, yes. What else? Heroes. Great, great, great. Bring them on. Anything from the stage. What brings you hope? People. All right, well, thank you so much for holding space for this conversation and for each other. I'm deeply grateful for this meaningful exchange. Thank you very much.